Call to order the work session of the Norfolk School Board for Wednesday, August 6, 2025. I welcome each of you present this afternoon. A quorum is present to transact the business of the school division. Ms. Tanner, please call the roll.
Basine? Buffalo?
Here.
Inge?
Present.
Martin?
Present.
Paulson?
Present.
Thomas?
Here.
DeCalagero.
Here. We will begin today's meeting with agenda item 2.01, chronic absenteeism and dropout rate. Dr. Pohl.
All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair DeCalagero, Vice Chair Thomas, members of the board. This afternoon, we're going to review what was formerly known as School Board 1, Goal 1, but we, have changed that, and we're just giving updates on the chronic absenteeism and dropout rate report. So with that, just looking at the rates for, let's see, a little bigger, there we go, for chronic absenteeism, we have nicely seen declines from school year 22 through school year 25. In fact, when you look at our measurements on the strategic plan, our target for the strategic plan for SY25 was 18.3%, so we actually exceeded that target. And although we've seen the improvements and we're meeting the targets for the strategic plan, we all know the lower this rate goes, the more instructional time our students get right because they're in school. So that's something we're still continuing to focus on. When we look specifically at the dropout rates, we're not seeing the same good news here. In fact, we're seeing an increase. We had 10.4% in SY22 to 14.8% in SY25. I would like to point out, though, and it wasn't necessarily on the sheet, but if you recall SY22, we were coming out of the pandemic, and there was a lot more freedom on SOL testing and everything else, and our graduation rates were a little bit higher during that time frame. So we're seeing that kind of the tail of the pandemic coming into fruition now, because these students that are graduating now were in middle school coming into high school, which we know is a tough transition. So really focusing, I'm trying not to focus on reading the report as much because I know everybody read the report, but just to continue the focus on improving our chronic absentee rates and our dropout rates. We're of course going to continue to build and grow upon our MTSS multi-tiered systems of support at the division level, all the way to the school level to make sure our school level plans are in place. And as the year begins, school level teams will be provided with appropriate training and professional development, not only around on how to help prevent, but how to better monitor with the data that we have at our fingertips now that we've talked about a few times at the board level. Additionally, annual trends are going to be analyzed to offer support to students. When we're looking at those traditional dips in attendance rates where we're not seeing the attendance as strong, so that we can get in front of those and try to do some strategies or some competitions or some way to engage students to have them come into school. Sometimes those are like the 2 days before Thanksgiving. We see a dip in the rates, or sometimes right around the winter holidays we see some dips in the rates. So really looking at those this year and trying to get in front of those as much as we can. And as a reminder, it did take a little while, but we have hired our senior coordinator for on-time graduation and student engagement. And Dr. Moore is on board to really help with our schools. In fact, she's already been visiting the graduation coaches. She's got it on her schedule to start visiting the schools that have the highest chronic absenteeism rate or the highest dropout rates early on to help them with their data and help do preventative plans straight on the line. And throughout the summer, our high school principals have been ardently working with their teams to track down any student who had dropped out to try to get them to re-enroll. And as an added benefit coming into this year with 4x4, if a student just needs 2 or 3 classes to be able to graduate, they'll be able to do it in the fall. So that we can say, we can have them complete a wintertime graduation. So that's the abridged version of where we are, and I'll pause for any comments or questions you may have.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. All right, excellent. So I know that we just hired the senior coordinator for on-time graduation. What are they going to be measured on for the impact, and what outcomes are you looking for?
For that specific position?
Sir?
We are looking for increases in these data points right here, our dropout rate and our chronic absenteeism rate. And then, following that, we'll start looking at improvements in our transition from 9th to 10th grade as well, because those are all data points that we track.
Awesome, thank you so much. Do you have the data on disaggregated by subgroups?
We have it by school that was posted, but it's not posted by school by subgroup. And I don't, in front of me, have the data by subgroup in front of me right now.
Gotcha. Is that something that you would be able to get to the board if the collective, if the board wanted it?
Yeah, we could run a report on that if it's
And do you
requested
have
for.
this?
Oh, of course I have, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to see, yeah, I got the
By
see
school.
Booker T, but I want to understand what subgroups within Booker T are
Right.
the ones, the chronic absenteeism.
So I just want to clarify then on that comment, are you going to be requesting or looking for it by school, by subgroup as well? Okay,
Yeah, we'll discuss with future
we-
agenda items at
That's
the end of
fine.
the meeting.
We'll discuss it then, no
That's fine.
problem.
Ms. Basine?
Oh, for right now, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pohl, and it's good to see the improvements around chronic absenteeism, and I know outside of our control that impact. Available for us to see what struggling and would like to focus on those. Each one of the EELC schools have probably the highest chronic absenteeism. So I imagine, is that what I understood is part of that, but how, I guess, how from a monitoring standpoint, strengthening resources that because we know at that, majority of them are elementary schools, so we know that it's not necessarily the student, maybe, a family situation or, some other.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're doing going into this year is each school will have offerings with partners through before and after school care too, which I know is a big concern at some of our schools and a couple of EELCs in particular. With the EELCs, those schools, as we all know, were chosen because they were some of our highest need schools. And part of the process with that is just engagement before or after school as well, and trying to grow the amount of students that we have engaged in the activities provided through the EELCs too, in order to boost their attendance rates.
Okay.
It's going to be offered, correct?
It's going to be offered, and so we've identified partners, and that's already in place. for
Yeah, I
this
believe
year.
Champions is doing the bulk of it for us.
Okay, okay. That's good to hear.
I got my nods from the right, so I answered that one correctly. Is it on the bottom?
What I heard.
Watch this. There's two mics up here.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that one. Thank you, Dr. Pohl. So my question, around the before and after care. So Champions is going to be at both. Okay. That's good to hear. And then through your end-of-year assessment around what some of the root cause analysis is around chronic absenteeism, I know that we've had these great attendance challenges happening, which I know are really exciting for the kids and our staff. But what else are you finding that we are in control of, that we can put in place, that we haven't already put in place, or that we can strengthen to?
Yeah, I think, really looking at the data, still, we will have more parents who will hold students home for the sniffles than we did, in 2019.
Right.
Which, is hard for us to have any control over. But it's really about just getting them to school and engaging them. And I do think by making sure that we're offering before and after school everywhere, that's going to help as well. So that parents have the ability to, if they have to be to work at 7 and school doesn't start till 9, it's a difficulty for our parents. So trying to bridge that gap is, I think, going to be one of the biggest benefits to our parents and students.
Okay, and specifically around transportation, was that, did you find that being an issue? Because one of the things that I think has been reiterated or reinforced in some of these community listening sessions has been around what happens when a student misses the bus. And then, they're far from they're not walking distance to their school. So then parents have gone to work or unable to, transport them to school. How does, I think at one point, and this might have been because we had ESSER funds to do this, but we had vans going to pick up students maybe at the high school level to get them to school. Was that?
So we looked at MKV funds, McKinney-Vento funds, because we do spend a good deal of money on private transportation for students who live out of the city to get them
Okay.
into our city for that. But we haven't really done the vans that way per se.
Okay.
And right now, unfortunately, we're short drivers as we have been traditionally. So being able to offer something like a second run to try to do something is just, it's out of the picture right now. We would love to get there, especially as we're looking holistically right now at our whole division through the consolidation planning about, what benefits does that offer besides just seat space?
Right.
And that could definitely be something we look at in the future to help with items such as this.
Okay. And then, so switching now into the dropout rates, related, but switching. So building on Mr. Inch's question around, so this year, we have a coordinator for on-time graduation, but we had also
Approaching a railroad crossing.
Sorry. Are you sure?
in a way,
That's one
that
way to
is
say
kind of
the question.
metaphorically, we are crossing, look, this is a crossroads first.
Yeah.
But where, with the dropout rates, we had, I think, in the previous budget, not this past budget cycle, but the one before that, also had added a dropout prevention specialist. Was that individual, was there someone hired for that?
That was the one that was just hired.
Okay,
that
so we
position-
never had anybody in that
No, this
role.
was
Okay.
so we have done a couple searches, a couple interview processes, and it took this long to find someone who's qualified for that position.
Okay, I didn't know if that was part of any sort of restructuring based
No,
on that.
that was this
Okay.
position that we've been, it was in
It
this
was in
year's
the-
budget.
Yes.
And it took us this year to find someone qualified for
Okay,
it.
okay. All right, so, and I appreciate, looking at how are we going to know whether that support was sufficient or we need more supports to really tackle this as our dropout rates increase. And speaking of the dropout rates, how do we compare to the state?
So final numbers haven't been posted yet. That's why we still have preliminary. Because
Okay.
technically, we have until the end of September
Okay.
until this number becomes finalized. So if a student right now might be reported as a dropout, but if they re-enroll in the fall, they're not a dropout.
Oh.
Even if they're coming in as their 5th year, they don't count as a dropout at that point because they haven't dropped out. So that's why we're preliminary on the data right now. So we won't have that
Okay.
until, when we do the state of the schools in November timeframe,
Okay.
that'll be up there as a piece of data.
I think, I wasn't sure if you maybe had preliminary state data or anything
I
like
wish,
that.
but
Yeah,
not yet.
Yeah. And you mentioned the multi-tiered systems of support and making sure that we have that fully implemented with Fidelity, which I know 2 years ago through the equity audit that was done, that was one area
Correct.
that I know, and I know we've been working on it. Have we evaluated like how we're doing in terms of its implementation in our schools?
So not yet. So you'll recall a few times I've spoken about like program evaluation. Really, I want to be 3 years in at least.
Okay.
And this coming up year is our third year of really doing full MTSS. So the first year, we focused on division-wide. The last year, we focused on schools developing their committees. And then this year, the committees are in place, and then we'll grow, and then we'll look at any specific data or points that we can to evaluate that process and need for improvement
Okay, so this would, this school year would be the third school year of
of
implementation?
full implementation,
Okay.
correct.
And there's nothing that happens in the interim to kind of see, are we on track or?
So division-wide, we look at data such as this during the monthly meetings.
Okay.
The division-wide committee looks at this, and then the school-wide committees, then it rolls over to them looking at their specific data as well. So they look at the same, pretty much the same data points I bring to the board, and then they go all the way down to school level.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier about the 4x4 schedule, and, I know when that was initially being proposed to the board, that was viewed as a potential benefit for students in terms of keeping them engaged. How are we doing with our other programs such as Open Campus and other like NGED programs that are also there to kind of help support, get our students?
So you'll see when we go over the monitoring calendar that we actually have an alternative education presentation on
yeah.
it. So we'll
Yeah.
That
really
was my
go into the
question.
depth of that on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, great.
I don't want to give any spoilers this afternoon.
Okay. All right, well, I appreciate that. So that was it for me. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
All right, excellent, Dr. Pohl. Let's go back to the chronic absenteeism. So we got some big ones here. So Booker T. Washington, 25.2%. The elected student population for Booker T is 899, which comes to about 227 students. Jaycox, I'm looking at, 30.8, that's about 184 students, and Lake Taylor at 24.7. So question for you, I would like to know, what are we doing with family engagement specialists, attendance officers, and social workers to mitigate these numbers?
Booker T. Washington and Jay Cox both have family engagement specialists because that's a requirement of Title I schools.
Got it?
And then Lake Taylor High School has their graduation coaches on site. And so we're working specifically with them with training. We do division-wide training plus specific school needs training to bring families in, just to bring families to school, period. The research shows that, if your families are more connected to school, they're going to send their kids to school.
Absolutely.
So just trying to bridge that gap and to open more opportunities. And then that's also where Dr. Moore, one of her areas that she'll be focusing on is that family engagement piece. And she has the same exact list, and she's going from the high number down to make sure that's her support levels as she starts her new tenure with Norfolk Public Schools.
Awesome. Thank you so much there. Next follow-up question I have for you. So how, with the school administrators and the principals, is this measured in their performance evaluations?
It's a piece of the data point that's measured in the performance. I don't know specific, like high school, I know dropouts is a piece of the data that's in there, but I don't have that right in front of me to be able to note if that's been noted specifically in there. But, broadly, they look at data when they're doing the principal evaluations. So your dropout rate, your absenteeism rate, your SOL rates, then you even go to, your turnover rates for teachers and other pieces of data are included in that.
Okay, so it's all factored into the performance evaluation. Okay, all right. Thank you so much for that question there. Next question is, how are we actively pursuing community organizations outside of Norfolk Public Schools to reengage families to get their kids to come to school?
So with the Department of Communications, with Ms. Featherston as our community engagement coordinator, her working with organizations, trying to create more open lines of communication within the division so that we're more open to concepts or ideas they may have to support us. Just really whenever any leaders out and about and they meet them, trying to bring them in how we can. But, specifically, really it's about if they have if anybody's listening and they have, needs or desires to work with the school division, to reach out to us, and we're trying to be more open door about that.
Excellent. Thank you so much there. Will there be any comprehensive chronic absentee plans given from the administration, from you and your team, and a plan of action
So-
moving forward to address these?
So that the schools that have higher rates are required to have it in their CSSPs. So they're required to have plans of action
Okay.
for attendance
Awesome. Thank you
rates.
so much there. Yeah, I stayed up long last night with a lot of questions for you, so let's see what we got next. All right. What are some of the internal barriers that are, well, let me go back and make sure. What are some of the internal barriers and policy constraints that are keeping our kids out that you would think of?
So I don't know that there are any policy barriers. I think some of the internal constraints that we have are still, with staffing some.
Okay.
Having a licensed teacher in every classroom that's able to engage the students is the most vital thing that we can have.
Do we have a report that compares licensed teachers to the schools that have the highest chronic absenteeism?
Well,
I mean, we have the staffing reports that you guys get.
Okay, all right.
And then this would be a counter where
Okay.
you could, I mean, we don't have one that's specifically made that way, but you have the data to be able to put them together.
Got it. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for that. All right, let's see what else I got here for you, Dr. Pohl.
can I ask a quick question?
Oh, of course you can. Well, I'll get my bearings
It's
straight.
very simple. Dr. Pohl, how many graduation coaches are in the high schools, each high school?
Question.
We have 10 graduation coaches across the division.
And, okay.
And they're shared, right?
They're shared. So, it might, we might technically assign them two per high school, but then they also jump to Madison Open Campus, and where they have needs is where they are. And that's part of Dr. Moore's plan too, is to look and see, okay,
How they're being,
specifically, because even though we might have like let's say Booker T and Mr. Engine mentioned, they have about 900 students. So some would say, well, they only need one coach, thinks they have 900 students, where you have, a school with almost 2,000 students, maybe they need three. But when we look at these rates,
that's right,
When you look
yeah.
at the
that
rates.
changes everything,
That
because we
changes
talk about the equity of placement, not the equality of
That's where I
placement.
was going.
Exactly.
Okay. You may proceed, Mr. N.
Well, I sure do appreciate that, Board Member Buffalo. Last question I did have here for you. So we've seen the surge in dropout rates. What are some of the contributing factors, and then what are the alternative solutions that we're giving to students that just say, hey, I'm throwing in the towel and I just don't want to come to school anymore? Are we making sure that we're either getting them into a GED program or diverting them to another program?
Yeah, so we do have a strong GED program. We try to get them to go to open campus. We
Okay.
try to even offer online offerings. But, GED also, it doesn't, if they get a GED, they still count on your dropout rate.
Okay, gotcha.
These wouldn't include our GED students that
Gotcha.
that we do provide for. But yes, we do have that. And as, open campus is also alternative hour schedules, so it doesn't start till like 10 in the morning, it goes later in the afternoon, so that if they needed to work in the morning, that we could accommodate that as well.
That's all the questions I have at this time.
Can I ask a follow-up? So you're saying if a student went through the GED program, it doesn't count toward our dropout rate?
Well, I need Ms. McGarity for this, and she's out of town right now, but I know when we're looking at accountability purposes, it does not count.
Does not count?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
That changed. That was a piece of the change when we moved from the former accreditation system. We used to get some points for it that
Yeah.
you no longer get for GEDs.
Just to help me understand, because I'm glad that came up, because that's why I was asking about our GED programs.
Now, let me clarify, though. It is still much better for a student
Of course.
to get their GED rather than just take a dropout. So we
Oh,
are still
absolutely.
absolutely,
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
I don't want to say that since it doesn't count, we don't do it. We
No,
are
right,
heavily
right.
involved with that.
No, absolutely. I guess I'm just trying to understand what the rationale is behind that decision. Do you know off the top of your head? Okay.
But when we do, so one of the things, when we do the State of the Schools in November, I've asked Ms. McGarity to do an update on the accountability plan from the state, so that she'll be able to have that and nail that for you.
Okay.
She's our local expert on all of that.
Okay.
follow-up question, Madam Chair. So of course, we track our students when they come in. The teachers have to do a check-in system, correct? It's like a check-in system or something?
Take attendance
They
every
take
bell.
Yeah,
attendance.
correct.
Okay, so how are we holding them accountable to make sure that they are? Because from what I'm hearing from some parents, students are not, teachers are not counting them there when they actually are there. And then,
So that's at the building level,
Right.
that, you know, there are edit reports too, because by block. So let's say a student came in and they were in your class and you had a marked present, and then they went to Ms. Buffalo's class, and she marked them absent, then there's going to be a pop, an edit report there to say, okay, were they there, were they not, or did they sign out early, so that we can,
is that real time? So if I go from Buffalo to Bassine's class, I'm marked present and I don't show up at her class when I'm supposed to, is it real time where it may alert the administration saying, Jason, hey, he showed up for Buffalo but didn't show up for Bassine?
No, that's
in
not
our
real
system, it's not
time.
real. It's the end of the day, you run a report.
Okay, okay,
The system doesn't support the real time on that.
But
okay.
at the high school level, though, don't we have a system in place now where,
Calls.
yeah, like, so the parent even gets a call
Okay.
if they're absent a period, like
Correct.
a block in the day?
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, I get those.
Oh, you get those all the time?
Yeah, more than I would like to.
If I have to pull them out to take them to the doctor or something, then I get a call that they were absent.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, I'm joking, but yeah, it's usually,
If
I
they have
know
study
about it.
block.
I know about it, yeah.
If they get out of study block.
Right.
All right, that's all the questions I have for you, Dr. Pohl. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Pohl.
My pleasure.
We will now move on to agenda item 2.02, school board monitoring calendar, again with Dr. Pohl.
All right, thank you again, everybody. You already have it ready, Ms. Tanner? So I don't have a formal presentation on this. I want it to be more of a conversation with us. And this one on the screen, I don't think anybody in this room will be able to read it. But you have printouts, or hopefully you have it on your device so you can see it. I want to just walk through a couple of things and just say, I think this year, based on the accountability changes and a couple other things I'm going to mention today, this will become more malleable. As we go through the year, there might still need to be some changes made. But one of the things we talked in agenda planning was starting to try to do a quarterly forecast of board meetings so that we can start to forecast out 3 months, and you guys have an idea of what's coming up 3 months through for every board meeting, which will kind of antiquate this a little bit in the long run. But one of the things I want to start with, and I wanted to bring it to the board first before I made any formal announcements for it, we've talked about it and the numbers are in. The correlation with the SGA and the SOL test is about 80%. And my recommendation is that we drop the STAR test this year. And if any principals are listening right now, they've just stood up and cheered right at this point. But my recommendation is that we drop the STAR assessment. It takes an assessment off our children's plate. Actually, it takes 3, the fall, the winter, and the mid-year, or the final year assessment for STAR. SGA will give us the same data points, but what that means is we go through the year, we're going to recalibrate our interim measures for the board goals based off the SGA. So I've already asked our ARA folks to go back and look at the past 3 years of SGAs to so we can look and see, okay, what's reasonable, what should the goals look like to get us to where we want to go. So I'll pause there, just any feedback on that STAR SGA conversation.
So, one question. So, I'm glad to hear that correlation piece has been done and examined. So, have you also looked at so one of the issues with the STAR, if I understood correctly, was also the alignment, right? So there's no need to, I guess, realign when the test is administered that would impact its correlation with,
No,
does that matter at
No,
all?
because it was really the items on the test weren't as correlated, and the Renaissance has said they're redoing it, and we're still going to have STAR for schools who may still want to use it.
Okay,
So it's still going to be a resource for those who want to use it, but division-wide, we're going to rely, because they have to do the SGA, so we're going to rely on that data piece, and likely look at phasing STAR out. Again, it's something, it'll give us more instructional time, because we don't stop for testing again. It will take a stress load off teachers and students, so I think in the end, it's a win-win. We just weren't sure when SGA came out, what that would really look like over time, and we've been pleased with the correlation of that data, and we feel comfortable now. And honestly, 2 years ago, I was in discussions with ARA about looking at this. And we had thought this year with reading, we'd probably start to eliminate STAR anyway, but some of the things with the vowels aren't how we thought they would. Like in middle school, we thought vowels would be for all students, but it's not. It's just for at-risk students. So we still want that reading data point, but we can get that through the SGA.
okay. Okay, well, and so when you also are saying that schools that want to use the STAR,
They still have the option
they
of using
still
it.
have the option, but they are not going to by any means feel
No pressure.
any pressure to do it or anything. So it would be like an assessment coming off the plate.
Correct. Just
And
like
I
when
think
we,
that would be, yeah.
just like if you recall, my second year here, we took away quarterly assessments and moved it to the unit assessments or the division-wide assessments for that data. So we took quarterly assessments off. Now we'll take STAR off, so we're really buying some of that time back.
Okay, I'm all for that. That's more time for teaching and learning, and that's, so, and 80% is a good,
Oh, that's strong.
it's
very
a pretty strong,
Mhm.
okay.
It's a
like,
strong correlation.
There's nothing that is stronger than that at this
I think
point.
the highest we got with STAR was around 78%.
78,
Yeah,
okay.
I think maybe one specific grade level was around 82 at one point, but when we're looking at 80% overall for grades 3 through 8, that's a strong correlation.
Okay, and it's strong across all grade levels, okay.
Yeah, there's no outliers in those
Okay.
numbers. I mean, we're probably looking, I think, between, I don't have the exact numbers, between 75, 85% across all grade levels, so we're in a good spot with that. And our statistician, Greg Williams, felt comfortable with it. If
Yeah.
he's got a master's in mathematics, so
Yeah,
if he,
that's- I mean,
if he
that's
feels
pretty
comfortable, I
good.
feel pretty good about it,
Yeah,
so. But with that knowledge base, then what I need you to know, this year with the SGA, since they rolled out a new one last year, this year they made a couple of minor changes to it, but we don't administer it until October. So that's why when you see this, you won't see any, usually in, early October, we're coming to you with data like that. You'll see that it'll be November before we start coming to you with some of the reading and math data early on, just so you know.
Okay. I'm sorry. So as it pertains to this calendar, so we have goal 2 in October. And
That's vowels.
that is vowels only.
Yeah, so goal 2, measure
That
1 is
measure-
vowels.
Yeah, that interim measure 1.
And then you'll see goal 2, the next goal 2 is the beginning in December.
December,
Because in October, they takes the test, so we'll be able to go through that data by November. So the very first board meeting in December, you'll have the first third grade reading measure for us. And that also gives us the time to do the 3-year trend data that we're looking at.
Okay.
And so as far as the rest of the calendar, we tried to make it pretty self-explanatory with the left is what we did this year and the right is what we're proposing. There's not a lot of movement. You'll see with time, goal 5, of course, one of the measures drops off, measure 3, because it was 2025. So once we finish the annual measure for interim measure 3 on goal 5, we'll just have 2 measures to report for the remainder of this year. And then, goal 3, and has to do with the gap data, which we'll be using the SGA for now. So that's going to happen in December. That all gets a little crunched up this year. So December will be a little bit of a busy month
Yeah,
with
I see.
data because it comes in. But then next year, it'll put us back on plan, where we have a fall assessment, winter assessment, and a spring assessment with the SOL test.
Not so much a question, but perhaps since you're hoping for this to be, as a work session, one of the things, especially as we have 4 new board members, is and we're going to talk goal 2, 3 is all around reading, is perhaps making sure, the full board is aware of the Virginia Literacy Act. And I know you provided a great overview, and our literacy team provided a great
Made you work.
overview. Yeah, of the Virginia Literacy Act, and I think that might be helpful, and it's just a recommendation, might be helpful for everyone to get that again.
If we
just-
can do that when we do, and I don't mean to push it off, but when we do the future agenda items, because then I'll be with my iPad and I can type it in.
Oh, okay,
So that, because that way I can make sure we put it where we want, where it would fit as
sure,
well.
yeah.
Because I think it's a great idea, and we're always happy to come, I mean, my literacy team loves to talk about what we're doing with literacy, so. So overall, again, this follows the same pattern we've been following. This will give you the data for the board goals throughout, and then you'll see on the right-hand column with others, one of the things we had talked about was making sure that we have some of the routine presentations that we do on a regular basis anyway in there. And then since we've kind of forecasted out some already with board planning, you'll see like in August, we're doing the chronic absenteeism and the dropout. And then in the August 27th, we're planning to do the climate report, so that's on here. The 4x4 update in September. In October, the discipline and alternative education update. And then November, the equity report always comes out. We'll do state of the schools. And then since it's not a board goal, we'll make sure we keep focused on the absenteeism and dropout rate as we go through. And then January, we put board retreat on there because traditionally we've done some sort of retreat, either January, February timeframe. And then you can see like budget submission in March. We try to do just the big ticket items in here. And as you see other things, if you notice when you're looking at this, other things that we've done that have been missed, just let me know and we'll work on making sure they show up on this. But, one of my goals, is to really be transparent on what we're doing and what we're able to provide the board, when you guys. That's really,
Yeah.
that's what I got.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
The other, I'm not saying I would remove it, but the board quarterly self-evaluation, that was originally, we had wanted that put in there based on a model that we were using. And I think if we can just at least start with, and this is a future agenda item, but whenever we get to the point of talking about governance training and what that looks like, because I know our requirement is to do one annually, but we wanted to be more aggressive about our own evaluation. And I think until we have that governance training piece, you hear what I'm saying? Like,
I do.
yeah, that, to prioritize that over.
And that's why I wanted this to be a discussion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, we're going to get a clean version, Dr. Pohl? Yeah.
We'll clean it up. And like I said, I do, hopefully in October, we also start a quarterly forecast. That way you see more comprehensively of what we're doing. So we'll clean it up and post it like we have in the past.
Madam Chair.
Colonel?
Where you're talking about the self-evaluation, we will still be doing our annual one, correct?
Oh, yeah, we're required to do that, yeah.
Okay, when will that be scheduled? It's not on the monitoring calendar.
It is on the monitoring calendar right now.
That's the quarterly. I'm talking about the annual.
They're all quarterly on here.
Because that was assuming that would cover the, meet that annual. But yeah, we would obviously have to put the annual evaluation if we're removing the quarterly.
I'll put annual on July just so we have it as
Yeah,
a
because that's when
marker
we've
on here.
typically done it. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, everybody ready for some fun?
Yes. Should like to-
fun.
All right, policy. It's been a minute.
It's a lot to read through.
There was a lot to read through, you are correct. And this is not all of it yet. I do want to say that we made it through as much as we could in an hour and a half. And we have some more to go through when we do policy review again this month. So good afternoon, everybody, again. You know, as you've seen, there are several policies being reviewed today. I'm just going to bring up some of the significant policies and some of the changes that were made on those policies. For those that are new to this process, you know, we developed this specific policy form where there's a cover page that tells you the specific policy, when we looked at it, when the anticipated votes are, and then the cover page also gives you just what are the changes. And generally, if it's a cross-reference or a legal change, it's just, that means on the very bottom, there were things that we had to change because either the law code changed or there's a new policy that we needed to cross-reference. And then sometimes you'll see that when we get into it, some of the changes are changing, you know, him or him, her, and, you know, and making it gender neutral in the statements the way they do it. All of our policy change recommendations come from the Virginia School Boards Association, and those drive where we make our changes from on the policies. So anything that's in here that you see redlined is direct language from the professionals at the VSBA. We meet, when policies is rolling at us, we meet monthly. Our school board attorneys are with us in those meetings, and the two PRC members, Ms. Basine and Dr. Martin, and we review all of these beforehand and go over any questions that we may have. But these are the ones I just want to read through just to put eyes on them. And then at the end, I'm going to give you a listing of policies that we're recommending for a first and second reading. And what that means is that we're going to review it tonight, but then we're going to repost it in the September work session as well. And that gives our community 2 months of time to make any kind of comments on them. So we'll also post a survey on board docs. Ms. Tanner does that for us. So that if anybody has questions or concerns about policy, they can ring them through, and we have those concerns then to be able to share before the board votes on them. Fair enough?
Good to me.
All right, so policy DJF, this adds language to be in line with new legal requirements around felonies and crimes of moral turpitude. It also includes updates on IT goods and services to be in line with state law contract terms. EB adds language around athletic emergency plans, cardiac emergency response plans, and bleeding control plans, and this is, again, in line with legal needs. And all these updates have been reviewed and are being implemented by school wellness and athletics. And that's the other thing I failed to mention. When we get the initial policy, sometimes it takes a while to get to this level. These policies came in May, and I know it's August and we're looking at them, because once we get the policies, they go to each chief, and then each chief meets with their directors, and we start to look at, okay, what would need to change procedurally, because no matter what, if the law changed July 1st, we're required to follow the law. Mr. Cloud will be very proud of me for saying that. So we are required to follow the law, so the policy may follow it sometimes, but know that if the law changed, we're following the law to make sure that we're in line with legal implications. EBB adds language to be in line with the requirements on updating parents on student behavior, safe storage of firearms, and limiting student access to lethal means. EBBA really is just adds language to support changes to EB and a new policy, EBBC. And that new policy, EBBC, is finally with us. It's on opioid antagonists, focused on the administration, the maintenance, regulations, and training. The regulations also posted for review on how it'll be implemented. And Dr. Moore, our director of school wellness, has done a great job of working with community members and making connections so that those antagonists will be provided to us at no cost, at least for this year. So we're in a good spot with that. EBCE adds language again to support EB. GBN adds the omission of pertinent information to the policy. So that one's talking specifically about when someone's maybe being interviewed for something that happened, that omission also counts. If they're omitting stuff that they know is supposed to be there, that's not a good thing. So that's in the policy now too. GCB adds substitute teachers and removes the language that defines substitute teachers, since there's a policy definition for them in GCE. GCDA adds a language to be in line with the new legal requirements found around felonies and crimes of moral turpitude that we saw back in DJF. GCE has several changes. There's a title change. This policy defines substitute teachers and adds language around the former allowance that was 180 days. So this is an important note, when just after COVID and it was really tough to staff and we had to rely more on substitute teachers, we were allowed to have them for 180 days. That's back to 90 days now. And if it needs to go beyond 90 days, then we have to go to the state board for approval for that. So that is back, and that's why there's a lot of changes to that policy. GCPD adds language protecting employees who administer opioid antagonists. So, in all, there's professional development, everything around it, but if something goes wrong in that administration of the opioid antagonist, then this protects the employee from that. IGAG adds language around instruction on opioid overdose, prevention, and reversal. This, again, aligns with the new opioid policy. IGBJ is a new policy that aligns with legal requirements to place students in advanced math courses in grades 5 through 8 who score in the upper quartile scale of their mathematics SOL test. I'll let you know that we have the allowability to wait till next year on this, but we did not choose to wait till next year. So we've been working fervently over the summer to make sure that we're in line with this. And generally, I don't have the exact numbers, but we're not finding masses of students who weren't already in advanced math. We're talking about the students scoring in the top quartile of their math SOL test should be in advanced level maths. And this grades 5 through 8, if middle school advanced math is, in everybody out there listening, middle school advanced math is the most important, because if you stay on track with middle school advanced math, you can get through algebra and start in higher level math when you get to high school. So that's why this goes 5 through 8, is to make sure they're on track for higher level math, which means they could be on track for, dual enrollment calculus or AB or AP courses in math. So this is now in law, and we're behind it. IKG is being removed as it's no longer required. JFCD adds stiletto knives and sling blows to the policy now. So just to make sure, there must have been some issues with that across the state, because it's now added. JHC adds language around telehealth and mental health services, basically that it can't count it against a student's attendance, or if it's happening during the school day, that they have a private secure place for it. JHCD adds language on diabetes medication as well as the opioid antagonists. And JJAC removes the definition and information around concussion management team and concussion training. And now it focuses really on the return to learn and return to play protocols. We do have procedures in place. Mr. Suttmiller, our senior coordinator of athletics, is very much on top of this. And we're strong. This had a lot of changes, but it was more just wanted to focus on the return to learn and return to play. For policy JO, when I was rereading everything, I'm recommending we pull this policy. When I looked at it, there were a couple highlighted areas that I wanted to ensure we have in there properly. So I'm going to take JO off of the voting list when it comes up for voting, and we'll re-bring it back when I feel it's better. My apologies for that. JRCA adds definitions for school-issued devices and school technology providers, as well as language on deleting information on devices that were issued to students prior to allowing another student to use the device. So, in other words, it's just in the policy now says if a student, when they return their Chromebook, it needs to be wiped clean before it's reassigned to another student. And that's a part of policy. Mr. Zamora is on top of that, and we do that already in the division. So, again, that must have happened somewhere across the state, so it's now in policy. So all the policies that were not mentioned, that I didn't review out of the 3,000 that were posted, it's those minimal language changes. Sometimes board wasn't capitalized, so it's capitalized board, or it's just legal or cross-reference updates. And then with regulations, regulations are somewhat owned by the superintendent administration, and if we change a regulation, we just let the board know. So the GBEAZR, we're removing the Z because the policy no longer has a Z. We were able to bring that back to VSBA regulation. And additionally, it's in line with the human resource audit. If you remember, I think it was a year and a half ago maybe that we talked about limiting our drug testing to only those where it's required federally. to drug test and not drug testing all employees upon employment, because we were one of the few divisions who did that, and that was a recommendation from that. Finally, policy BDDD doesn't have any updates, but we're required by law to look at policies every 5 years, so that one it has no updates. And then with, as I said earlier, with certain policies that have greater effect on our students or our teachers specifically, and they're just not procedural policies, we do first and second readings. And there are several, and I'll say them publicly so we have them, but I can email them to the board if you guys would like. But EB, EBB, EBBC, EBBA, GBN, GCDA, GCE, GCPD, IGAG, IGBJ, JFCD, JHC, JHCD, JJAC, and JRCA all pertain to students and teachers, and we want to make sure that we have a second reading on those policies. So we'll see them posted again in September's work session, and they won't turn up on the consent until September's business meeting, but you don't have to listen to me about them again in September. You know, you've already heard the spiel on it. And then there were a couple other that related to teachers, GBLA, GBR, and GCG, but there were really no substantive changes in those policies. So with that, I'll conclude the update on policies.
I missed that list.
I sure will. Mhm.
Any questions? Ms. Basine?
Thank you, Dr. Pohl. Will the policies for first and second reading, will they also go out to, to our employees to say, hey, you know, these policies are going to change, are changing, please take a look, we want your feedback?
Yeah, so we do two things. One, when we do a first and second read policy, we'll send an all staff and then an all parent email just saying, here's, if you're interested to look and give feedback, here are the policies that are going for first and second reading, and we'll link to the policies as well. And then once the board passes policies, we also send those changes out to all principals so that they know what's going on.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Madam Chair. All right, this DI, financial accounting and reporting. So on that one, I do see where it says we would receive monthly statements of funds available for school purposes. I know in the last administration, we had some issues with the audit being delayed by, I think it was about 6 months. Is there anything and mechanisms in place so that the board is automatically notified of that, so we won't go through that type of issue again?
To be honest, I don't think there's a mechanism in place so the board's automatically notified of anything late. However, I have met already probably 3 times with Mr. Starks, our CFO, and Mr. Starks has also met with the city already, who's offered a tremendous amount of support where needed, and we have a plan in place to make sure that we are ahead of schedule on the audit.
Awesome, thank you, sir.
All right, thanks.
We'll now move on to agenda item 2.04, school crisis plans with Mr. Hughes and Dr. Cataldo.
But you want to drive? I was going to open it. I was just going to open it for you. Or you're welcome to. Here, I'll do it. Okay, now you can.
Good afternoon, the College RO, Chair, Vice Chair Thomas, and Dr. Pohl. So this afternoon, we're going to be discussing the school crisis and emergency management response plans. And as you may know, annually, under Virginia law, we are required to review the crisis plans for the schools. So currently, the state of Virginia provides a template for each schools and the division. So the current template that we're using this year is a new template. This is the first year that we've used it, and this template was issued last year, and this is the first year that we've used this template. So this template fits with both federal requirements and, of course, the state's requirements for emergency plans. And some of the new components for it is a little bit more robust than the plans that we've seen in the past. This plan includes both NIMS and the emergency action plans that will cover ICS, and it is taken from an all hazards viewpoint, so that it will cover just about any hazard that we would come into contact with in the city of Norfolk. A couple of new things that it will do is it will fit in with what is considered the standard response protocol and the standard reunification method. These were adopted by the state of Virginia for school systems by both Department of Criminal Justice Services and Virginia Department of Education for schools in response to crisis. This is something that's new to the city of Norfolk, and this is something that we're starting to use in response to crisis in the city of Norfolk. So earlier this year, schools completed a survey of crime and working conditions, and we're waiting for results in this, from Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services. And annually, the schools complete this. We get information from it, and this helps us to make decisions on things that we need to implement as far as security measures throughout the schools. We review the crisis plans, we review things that have happened during the school year and make decisions on what we need to do. We look at potential hazards. We look at the Hampton Roads crisis plan for hazards throughout the city and what we can do to mitigate those hazards and things that we can do to prepare for that. And we look at those things, we put it together with a plan, and we try to look at things that we can do to lessen the likelihood of any problems that we may face through it and what we can do going forward. The crisis plans that we have, again, they're looked at from a position of all hazards. And what the state did this year in this plan is most crisis plans work either on a 4 or a 5 facets of prevention, of preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. So what the state did is they took the first 3 portions of that, the preparedness, the prevention, and the mitigation, and they put it into a before area. The during, they took the response and put that into a during portion, and then the recovery into an after portion. And if you look at the plans, they're in that. And that kind of made it a little bit easier for folks that may not have had a big background as far as crisis response. And it's, separated out in that, so it's easy for, teachers and anybody else that may not have a lot of experience in doing that, so that they can kind of follow through what may need to be done, dealing with students and parents and everybody else, so it's really easy to follow. Schools will take care and they develop their plans. They're submitted to us. We review them. And then after we review them and we look at the plans, we give it back to them. And they make necessary corrections. And after those corrections are done, this is the product that you get, and you get an opportunity to look at it. And once you review them and you take a look at them and you guys vote on them, then they're going to be certified to the state. There's also a division level plan that's in there. And again, it's looked at from an all hazards perspective. And these are plans that are same thing. It is plans that are looked at from the standpoint of how we would respond to any hazard that would be likely to occur within the city of Norfolk. And it is something that we'll look at weighing the risk against the likelihood of it happening. And things that are more likely to happen, we give more of a idea of more time of more response to, more effort in looking into what a response for. So the template itself contains instructions for various emergencies. And again, this template was provided for the state so that it complies with all state laws. There's a drill schedule that's included in there and information for necessary drills, individuals that are involved, and all information for necessary folks within the community to contact in case of emergency. These plans, once they're approved, they're shared with any emergency responder in the community that would be involved in the emergency response to Norfolk Public Schools. So at this time, if there's any questions, I'd like to answer them for you.
Dr. Martin?
One concern that I've always had, and I have a background in emergency management training, so one concern I've always had is that so for example, if someone presents a weapon, in the past, what we've done is we'd put the school on lockdown and classrooms on lockdown. But if someone has a weapon, shouldn't we also be trying to get our students out of there?
So there's really no one-size-fits-all. So one of the things that is different about the way we do things now is, number one, we have gone to what we've considering the standard response protocol, and this kind of simplifies things a little bit. So in the case of a person with a weapon, what we are doing is we're going on the lockdown, just like you said. But one of the things about school building and the construction of a school building and looking at past incidents, there has never been a documented incident in a school of an individual in an active shooter situation of someone breaching a solid core door in a steel frame during a shooting incident. Most active shooter incidents only last a few minutes. About 70% of active shooter incidents are over in less than 5 minutes. 90% are over in less than 10 minutes. So what you want to do in any type of an incident that involves a weapon and shooting and anything like that, you want to buy time. So the idea behind an active shooter or an individual with a weapon is to buy time. So by going behind a locked door and a secure door and going on lockdown is to buy time, and to buy time for an emergency response. Our individuals in schools, teachers, our security staff, they're not armed. And unless there is a school resource officer, an armed police officer that's in the building, there's no one in the building that can challenge that person that's armed. So the best thing that you do on what's in your favor is time. So by going behind a locked door and securing yourself and getting out of sight, and which is what we're teaching in the standard response protocol, that's buying you time. And you're calling for help and you're calling for assistance. And so by doing so and getting time and creating that time barrier, that is the absolute best thing that you can do for survival and mass survival. Because, again, a solid core, locked door, which is what most of our buildings will afford a classroom full of students, is the absolute best thing that we can do and the best chance that we can give everybody in that building a chance for survival.
Is that a new standard?
The standard response protocol is not new. It was began sometime around 2012. It was started after an incident in Las Vegas. There was an individual in Las Vegas that went into a school, and his intention in going to a school was to abduct a young lady. And sadly, what he ended up doing was abducting, he ended up taking hostage and killing 2 students. And as a result, the parents of that student started a foundation called I Love You Guys, And they researched and they came up with just certain response protocol. And this response protocol right now is used in about 55,000 school districts throughout the country. It's adopted in several states. The state of Virginia adopted it sometime around 2021 or 2022. It's in use in the state of Maryland. The Raptor Visitor Management System, it integrates with them. They are a sponsor of it, and it is, what it does is it simplifies what we do. Prior to this, you know, a lot of school systems would use various language. They would use language like we're going into an instructional lockdown or a soft lockdown, or we're going to use various different things. You know, maybe we're going to shut down this building, or we're going to do this. And what the standard response protocol does is it makes it very simple language. And what I learned from my past as far as emergency management and police response is that simple language is the best. Incident command, you know, a lot of police departments used to use 10 codes and a lot of various different codes and everything. Well, what we learned was simple language is the best. You know, if it's a fire, if you're asking for a piece of equipment, very simple is the best. So with the standard response protocol, there are only 5 things that we do. There is a hold, which means everybody is clearing out of the hallway. Instructional activities still continue. It's not the same emergency as a lockdown. It is just something is going on that the administration does not need students in the hall. It could be a medical emergency. It could be, you know, an animal got into the building, a raccoon or whatever. Something is in there that we don't want students in the hallway. Then the next one is a secure. That means there's something outside of the school that we don't want students outside. It could be something going on in the community. It could be a crime outside of the building. But it's secure. The building is secure. We're not letting anyone in. We're not letting anyone out. But instructional activity still occurs. Next is a lockdown. And a lockdown is exactly what it sounds like, what we've always been doing. But a lockdown is exactly that. The building is locked down. And that's lockdown, lights out, you're out of sight, the doors are locked, and, you know, that is something is in the building that is a danger. That it could be a person with a weapon, something is really going on, so we're having the students out of sight and they're locked down. And there's a very specific procedure for recovering from that. And we teach the students that up front. And then there is shelter. That could be something, you know, weather-related, tornado or flood, and an evacuation. That could be a fire or, you know, something else is going on and we had to evacuate the building. Those are 5 things, very simple. They learn that. They don't have to learn anything else.
So if we go back to talking about lockdowns, so if a school's on lockdown, what kind of access does the emergency responder have to the person, the incident commander in that situation, which would be probably the principal, right?
So if it's a lockdown right now, what will happen is if the building goes on lockdown, you know, of course, proper authorities are coming. Right now, we're in the process of, we are installing electronic access points. There are knock boxes that are, will give fire and first responders access into buildings. And I can say this, I spent 24 years in Norfolk Police Department. There's not a building in the city, you know, we could not get into.
Get into, okay, because we had an emergency response task force type thing temporarily to look at the safety of our schools. And one of it seemed that there was a breakdown at that time, maybe it's been improved, which would be wonderful, that in communication, in that the patrolling officers that usually patrol around the same areas and around our schools, they knew how to get in. And then, with changeover on both sides, that communication got lost. And so it's good to hear. I mean, if it's something that every person who needs to know will know how to do that and access it, that would be wonderful.
We have quite a few things in the works to do that. Right now, if you ride by a school, you'll notice that every door is numbered. So if there is an emergency in the building, we're able to say, go to this door, go to a particular door. So we might say, there's something going on and you can get access to door number 4. Some of the things that we have currently, we have the Raptor Visitor Management System, which is actually more than just visitor management. It is an emergency management system. It is a drill management system.
However, you have to already be in the building to access that.
Well, it's a little bit more than that. There is Raptor Alert, which we do have. And the alert, it's on phones, and we can actually pinpoint within the building where certain emergencies are going on. And we do have digital mapping of the schools. So we're able to say, if there's something that's going on, let's just say it's in a certain portion of the building, if it's in the media center. Right now, all emergency responders within the city of Norfolk have access to digital maps of all of our schools. So if they say there's something that's occurring right now and it's in the media center, they have the ability to look right while they're in their patrol cars or in a fire truck on their computer terminals and say exactly where within the building the media center is. And that's displayed on something similar to a Google map. So regardless of which direction they're responding from, they're able to look at, something similar to a Google map and say, okay, I see exactly where the media center is. That's where we need to focus our attention.
Thank you.
Just a follow-up question to that. So if, let's law enforcement, first responders are responding to an incident, are the camera systems tied into the Norfolk Real-Time Crime Center?
At the moment, they're not.
Plan 2?
We have been in discussion with them. There are some computer programs that work on that, and we have had discussions with them concerning doing that. There are a few things that we may have to work out before it is complete, but we have been in discussion with doing that.
Awesome. And then also, and when you're doing the drills, are you coordinating also then at the same time with law enforcement, first responders to gauge their response time for them to get to the building?
Not necessarily response times for them to get to the building, but we do coordinate with them. Not specifically for response times, but we do coordinate with them.
So none throughout the year. So like a fire drill, we don't do a non-emergency to the closest fire station to see how long it would take for them to get there during certain conditions of the day to assess.
Not response times.
Okay, all right.
Questions, Mr. Inch?
Any
Other questions?
yeah, got one more. I do see here with the missing and abduction. So quick, just on that one, does the schools also, school administration, with the missing and abduction children, do you have access to the SOR registry so that you can see that just in case if one of our children have been abducted by someone, it's on the sexual offenders list?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All I got. Just want to make sure our babies are taken care of, like Alfreda say.
You have a question?
Yes. So thank you for the presentation and update. So my question is about the drills. Have there been any changes to the number of drills that our students are going to be administered during the school year, or?
So yes, there have been some changes on the drill. So let me clarify a little bit. So, and I'm going to rely on a little bit on my personal knowledge when I kind of go back to your question about the drills. Response time, calls for service is something I'm going to say, we live in an urban environment. being in an urban city, outside of something that is just catastrophic, there are very few times that you're not going to get to a call for service within just a few minutes. And when I say catastrophic, I mean something, on the level of, a 9/11 type event. Outside of that, most calls for service, you're going to get there if it's a true emergency. And I'm not talking a burglar alarm or whatever, because calls are prioritized. And a call for service, once it's received and it's prioritized, and we know that, and the EOC knows that it's an emergency, calls a dispatch, we have never had an issue with emergency response and it not being there in a timely fashion, whether that's police, fire, rescue, or anything like that.
What's defined as a timely fashion?
I'm going to tell you minutes.
And the reason I said, Madam Chair, and the reason I say this is because police officers, our law enforcement, they have shift changes. And a lot of times when incidents happen in our city, they're happening during shift changes. And so a lot of calls to services go unanswered. And also, our police department are at low staff numbers.
I understand that. And like I said, and I'm just speaking from experience. When calls for service come in, again, they're prioritized.
Of course.
And, and I will tell you from experience, once, a call is prioritized, if it's a burglar alarm, and it's just an alarm, and there is nothing else to indicate that is anything other than alarm, and there is nothing to indicate that it's a life in danger or anything like that, it is just an alarm, which could be a mechanical thing. At that point, there may not be an immediate response. Now, and this is just from my experience, and I mean my experience here with the school system. We have called, we have said we need assistance. We have gotten nothing but assistance immediately. I've spoken to folks, and when I say we call and say we need assistance, we have gotten it within minutes. It has been very timely, and we have gotten calls there immediately. We've never had any issue with waiting more than just, minutes. I mean, there were a couple of times we've called for folks, and you could almost literally hear sirens almost as soon as we hung up the phone. And I say that to say, because of being in an urban environment, it is, it's a timely response. I couldn't ask for a better response than what we get. So we've never had a drill where we've said, we're going to clock you and see how fast it takes to get a fire truck here or a police car here if we say, we've got, an active shooter in the building. The current drill schedule, and I'm kind of going from memory, but the current drill schedule is this. The first 10 days of school, there has to be one fire drill. Within the first, after the first 10 days, but within the first 20 days, there has to be a second fire drill. Then after that, every month, there has to be an additional fire drill through the end of school. There has to be, within the first 20 days of school, 2 lockdown drills. There is an exception for pre-K and K that it's not mandatory for them doing the first 20 days of school. After the first 60 days of school, there has to be 2 additional lockdown drills. The pre-K and K will be included in those.
Okay.
There is a tornado drill, at least one during the year, and there is a cardiac response drill. That is new, and that is included there's one during the year. There are 2 bus emergency drills. one within the first, I believe it's first 30 days, if I'm not mistaken, and then one within the first 30 days of the second half of the year. And then any other drills that are recommended, up to the discretion of the administration. They're not required, but there's some are recommended, such as an earthquake drill, shelter, a hold, those type of drills.
Okay, as our babies return back to school less than a week, this is a little off from your emergency response plan. How secure are our schools, all schools in Norfolk? All schools, I have something to say. Working adequate security from equipment to staff, metal detectors and cameras. Are they all in working condition? Are all doors able to be locked at all times?
Well, without going around and checking and pulling on every door right now, I couldn't tell you that every single door could be locked. I can't answer
You
that.
have workers in the school. You have security, you have custodian. We have been out for over the summer. The baby's about to go back in school less than 2 weeks. I think that's something that could have been answered with a yes. But if it's going to take a little time before school starts on the 18th, I think we need to get it done and make sure that our babies are ready to go back. Not only our babies, but also staff, anybody that's working in the school.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
How is our staffing on security? Are we staffed fully, or?
Right now, I have we have 2 positions that are open, but right now, I believe HR has made offers to folks to staff them, and they're in the process of staffing them. So we should be fully staffed.
Okay, second question. Do we still have SROs at the middle school level?
Right now, we have 1 SRO that works out of middle school, and we have been in conversations, and I spoke to the police department today, and Dr. Pohl doesn't even know it yet, but the police department has asked me to get on his calendar so we can discuss SROs.
Because I know at one point there was one at each middle school.
Yes.
And what school would that be?
It's at Ruffner.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
can you describe what your security officers training, what training do they get?
So right now, security officers, upon hire, they get 16 hours that's mandated by the state.
Okay.
They get 16 hours of handle with care. That is somewhat of defensive tactics and tactics of I guess you can call it dealing with physical, breaking up fights and defensive tactics. And then they get 8 hours of things that are kind of germane to Norfolk Public Schools, dealing with Raptor and screening, wanding, and screening our entry points and dealing with our policies and all. And so it's 1 solid week prior to going into the schools.
Follow-up question to, so you are the one that is responsible for the overall
Yes.
district-wide. Can you give me an explanation to why you have not done an audit of all the metal detectors before we get into school?
Oh, they've been audited. All the metal detectors are working. I said doors. I didn't say metal detectors.
They're not metal detectors, they're.
Okay, so all equipment, so you can, right now.
Metal detectors are working.
All metal detectors are working in Norfolk.
Metal
Public
detectors
Schools
are
in all
working,
our
yes.
schools.
Yes.
I'm saying all. Can you say all?
All metal detectors are working, yes.
Are they metal detectors, or?
All right, cool.
Yeah, they all, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what we
the
call them?
Weapons
Thank you.
detection system, yes.
Our language.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Weapons detection, open gate weapon detection system. They are functional, yes.
Got it. All right. Now, outside of drills that you're doing with internal in the school, what are you doing external to assess each school to make sure they are up to date on their safety? Do you employ other employees to go and act as a person to walk around the school to see if security officers are looking on these cameras to see individuals walking around prowling? What assessments are you doing to
So-
mitigate before there actually is an incident?
So we go, myself, I have 6 zone supervisors. We go around and we check the schools regularly.
Okay.
You know, I go around, my assistant director, we go and we supervise. We have gone around. I go around, I check the metal, open gate weapons detection system. I have checked doors, which is why I'm telling you, I can't go and tell you that every single door, because I'm not going to say that every single door is working, because I have not pulled every single door. I have pulled doors, and I have found that there have been issues with doors. And I know that I have not pulled every single door. But I can tell you that I have checked every single weapons detection system. So I can tell you that every single weapons detection.
They do not all work at a given time. They do not. I worked for Norfolk Public School for 10 years, and I'm telling you what I know. Okay?
Well, I can't tell you they may not have all worked in the
Right.
past.
Okay.
I have gone and I have physically checked all of them. I have checked the settings on all of them. I have adjusted the settings on all of them.
There's room just to do better. That's all I'm saying.
I will accept that.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I saw your hand raised.
Well, quick question. Did I hear you say that Norfolk was going to the scan key system? Did I hear something?
We are being, the electronic
Yes.
key fobs are being
Yes.
installed.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Follow-up question to you, Mr. Hughes. And I don't want you to think we're putting you on the grill here, but we just want to make sure the safety and security of our students and staff are paramount.
Understood.
So you just heard the fire trucks outside, right?
Yes.
Okay. So they went, and it's 5:22, so right now this is about rush hour traffic. So their response time is going to be a lot different than it would be if it was 12 o'clock at noon during lunch.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I need to understand, why are we not coordinating with law enforcement to get response times?
Well, response times are going to always be different. I don't care what time you do it, response time is going to be different because it depends on whatever else is going on in the city. So even though you can say at 5:22 today, your response time may be 1 minute, I can tell you at 5:22 tomorrow, your response time is going to be totally different. Response times will never be the same.
Of course, they won't be
Because
the same, but
because it will never be the same. Even if I tell you that, we check and we say, hey, look, this is what your response time is, how long is it going to take? There are so many factors that will go into response time. And so checking a response time and seeing how long you work with a response time, I have to rely on the police department and the fire department to do their job. And when they tell me that they're going to respond, I have to rely on that. Like I said, when we do the drill, if they tell me that they're coming, I have to rely on them that they're going to be there. And like I said, we don't do the drill and say, this is how long your response time is. I have to rely on them that they will show up and that their response time will be adequate and that it will be, an acceptable response time. Now, like I said, what I found is that I've never had an issue with their response time, that there's never been any issue. And I meet with Assistant Chief of Operations, the Assistant Chief over Investigations monthly. And if I ever thought, or if there was ever an issue, that would be the first thing I'd bring up with the Assistant Chief, with Chief Howard, the Assistant Chief over the Police Operations. And I would assure you that we would have a conversation and that he would fix it. Like I said, we've never had that issue before on response times. And just like I said, in my experience, because of our area and being in an urban area, response times is not necessarily an issue. I think if we were in an area, in a rural area, where, our nearest police officer may be 15 miles away, that would make a difference.
absolutely.
But in an area like this, there's going to be police officers that we could draw from anywhere. And just like, if we were to, right now, bear with me, and I'll give you an example. If everybody remembers the incident that occurred a couple of years ago in Newport News with a young man in the school. I was working in Newport News. I was getting ready to go into a meeting, and it was the command staff when that call went out. The entire command staff jumped up and went there. Two of my guys were the first two people to get there, and we went the entire length of the city to get there, simply because of the type of call. And so I say that, and I offer that to say, response times on certain calls, it does not matter. The folks that need to be there will get there. And, it's a difference between that call and, and whether it's an alarm or someone who says, I was involved in an accident, or I was, it was a fender bender and I called the police and I dialed and I said, yeah, I've seen these police cars come by and I've been waiting for 25 or 30 minutes. Those are two different calls. And I know that people say, I've been waiting for a long time for a policeman didn't show up. Those are lower priority calls. But if you make a call to police department and say that there's a shooting in a school, I can't stress enough, a policeman is going to be there quickly.
No doubt, I'm not disputing that they would not come. I'm just disputing on how long would it take for them to come. Because we've had school shootings, not here in Norfolk, knock on wood, but we've had school shootings across America where response time was lacking with the police department, which caused a lot more children, unfortunately, to be killed.
And I understand.
So I just need to get a clear explanation. We're measuring assessment in different ways to ensure that we're protecting our students and staff, but we're not measuring in coordination with our law enforcement and first responders to see how long it takes them to get to a call at a given time. 5 o'clock for police to get here is different from 12. It's different for a fire department to get here if a road is closed. I'm just trying to understand why there is no measurement in place.
And I understand that. And my thing is this: even if we did measure that, first of all, there's no true measure for that, because even if we did measure it, I have no way of saying that's the same measurement that I would have if I did call in an emergency. Because where's the police officer coming from?
Right, so I would like to get an average response time of what it would take. So I know if I called 911, there would be an average response time before a police officer to come to my residence. I would want to know what is the response time for an officer to come. For example, when they had incidents at Granby High School, and when they called for extra police, it took a little time for them to get there. So that was a length response time. So I want to understand, why are we not measuring and working in conjunction with the police department and first responders to get a response time to know what's the average so that we can improve? Norfolk does not have enough police officers. So if there's not enough police officers and it's doing shift change and there is something going on in one of our schools and you call 911, you're not going to get someone like you would if they're right around the corner doing regular shift. So
I understand what you're saying, and please don't think I'm arguing with you.
Please just take that feedback.
I understand exactly what you're saying, and I don't have an issue with looking at that and getting that information. And I can get that for you. But I don't want you to get a false sense of security if I say, okay, we'll look at that, and I can say, this is the average amount of time. I will get that information for you. Okay. And I will get, what an average call is.
Yeah, the police chief could report to the city council and say the average response time for police.
I think you can get an average response time for a call for service. And you can get an average response time for a call for service from the fire department. And those things are really easy to get. But I think the average response time for an emergency call and a non-emergency call are vastly different. And I think that's really what I'm trying to say.
But that would be something that you would take back and feedback that I've been giving you, and maybe some other.
Oh, absolutely.
Agree.
But if you do it on a drill, it's a non-emergency call, and that's vastly different. That's what I'm trying to say. It's a vastly different.
I got what you're saying,
Okay.
Mr. Hughes.
I got you.
I got you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
I just have one more question. How often do you go into the schools?
Daily. I'm in a different school daily. I've been at different schools every day.
None at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
Now we're moving on to agenda item 3.01, school closure and consolidation discussion. I wanted to give the board some time if you had any questions for Mr. Fraley. Like, personally, I have a couple of questions about the closure and consolidation plan. And if anybody has any ideas, are we leaning towards adopting the entire plan, or do people think we need edits? You know, we have this meeting and our September work session to have a discussion about this before we vote on September 17th. So I wanted to give us some time to actually have a discussion.
Madam Chair, can I add
Yes.
a couple comments? I think it's important to share, we've reached out to Mr. Sturts to get a time frame on just feedback from the last set of meetings we had. We should have those, if not late this week, early next week, put together. And then we've created the presentation y'all have seen. We've created the survey that we can use during the board community sessions, happening August 9th, and then any others that you choose to have afterwards. I think if we can plan to have those scheduled and done during that last week of August, then we can be able to correlate all that data. So our discussion on September 3rd would really be about what edits do we see that we might need on that list based off community feedback, based off your thoughts after having the conversations. So I think it's more of, what is everything you would want as a board to make sure you have to be able to make, those kind of adjustments and decisions on the 3rd. And then we can still carry conversation to the September business meeting before a vote. But, those are the things that we have in place right now to make sure that you have, so that we can make any changes that you've heard, and then at that point, I think, we talk about what could be done, what couldn't be done, and what moves could be made on the list based off feedback that we have on the 3rd.
For me, I actually have some questions about the list. For example, there's one place where when we close Granby, we're going to take the southern-bound students to Taylor. But Taylor's at 82% capacity right now, so unless something changes in 5 years, there won't be room for those students to move. The other question I have is Ocean Air, Willoughby. Is Willoughby currently an elementary school or early childhood
It's only in
center?
early childhood.
Early childhood,
Yeah,
okay.
only pre-K.
Because it's a little bit on the sheet where everyone's seen the consolidated renewal plan. It says closed Willoughby ES for elementary school when it should really say ECC. So I was confused because we're going to move that program over to Ocean Air. And I wanted to make sure that that was truly an ECC and not an
How
elementary
many
school.
classes does that school house at this moment?
Willoughby classes. Okay. So, how many was that, Dr. Walton? 7, so about 21 classrooms there.
approximately 170 students.
So I wanted to give the board time today, if you had questions along those lines, to ask them and get clarification. So, Ms. Basine, did you have a question or a comment?
I don't have a question. I appreciate that coming up because that's been on my mind about how we're going to work through the feedback that we're getting and any alternative scenarios. Because I know that, especially that question was question 2, of like, what other changes would you like to see? And I really, walking around and listening to table conversations, like I kind of there were definitely some high-level themes that came up, but then, what I feel like for me, that there are still, questions around attendance zones. I actually, been trying to purge a lot of things from my house and came up, through old school board files of like when we made decisions around St. Helena. We did feeder pattern analysis, so it just reinforced the needs that I have around this plan in terms of having the feeder pattern analysis, having attendance zones. I mean, because all of those decisions were made with that in mind. And I think as we talk about big picture, I think that's real critically important. And I know we've had conversations at these meetings about that, about my concern around that, but I really feel strongly about that. And tying that into, some of the questions that have come up around transportation, have questions that have come up around, academic programming, which should be at the forefront of everything. And, doing this right and not just adopting a list, saying we're not, yes, I know we need to move, I know we need to make some decisions, but making, this is a critically important decision that changes neighborhoods in our city completely. And so I want to do this right. And I want to do this with as much information as we can so that we're making the right decision for our students. And so those are still pieces of information that I need. I know I have ideas, I've shared them, I've shared some of them, but without having that information, I don't know that we can fully tackle some of the alternative options, perhaps, or moving things that are in, for instance, moving schools that are perhaps later in the consolidation plan, moving them up and kind of doing some movement around the plan, not saying that the schools are necessarily not the right schools, but maybe the timing of when we're doing that is not, needs to be adjusted.
We anticipated that feedback from the board. David and I have already had conversations about that. If I could talk a little bit about what we don't want to do is move a group of kids and 3 years, say a kid's a first grader, and 3 years later, the expectation is the boundary will change and they'll go to another school. Now, obviously, we'd allow them to stay. We wouldn't force a move, but we don't want that to happen. So Mr. Sertz and I are currently in conversation about big picture, small picture. So what does the big picture look like in relation to redistricting? And we're going to have to segue through that with small pictures. But again, we don't want to contradict any boundaries with last-minute changes or anything like that. He has a very solid group of folks that do this for their company. They specialize in this. We've already engaged them in this task. They are currently reviewing the data. And I anticipate this will not be a significant concern for the first stages of this plan.
So could I ask a follow-up question? So following these meetings that we've had so far, what, I guess from an expectation standpoint, what can we expect that we're going to get back from the consultants? Because, obviously they're collecting the data, they're seeing it first, and they're going to be able to preempt some of the questions that we're going to have, like you said.
Right.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
so what information are we going to get back, and when are we going to get that back? And I think that will feed into the question of when do we come back and kind of look at it, digest it, and if there are alternative suggestions that Mr. Sturts might provide, you know, when will we get that feedback?
So in relation to the accumulated data from the feedback from our last community meetings, his team is working on that. I've asked them to put it into like a slide presentation that I can give to Dr. Pohl to share with you all. Or if you all choose, we could certainly fly David back in for a more formal presentation if the board, you know, would like that to occur. If you could give me any other details of specifics you're asking me to respond to.
I guess we're wondering about the time frame.
They're working on it now, Mrs. DeCalagero. I'm being told that by the end of this week, early next week, we should be able to have all that accumulated feedback from the last 2 community meetings. His
Okay.
team is actively working on it. I spoke to them today.
Okay, but is his team working on some of the alternative scenarios that have been proposed as a result of that feedback and what that might look like?
Let me jump in here. So once we have that feedback, that's what we'll work on as well
Okay.
administratively, and then work with Mr. Sturts on it, so that when we're preparing for the September 3rd conversation, it's not just coming in here cold and saying, okay, what do we want to do? It's going to have scenarios to say, here's the voices we've heard, and here's the concerns that we have, and here are alternative plans that we could look at, so that we can have a discussion based off that, instead of trying to redesign and restructure everything on September 3rd.
Okay, and that's exactly what I'm asking about. Like, so on September 3rd, we can expect to have some alternative scenarios to consider
Right.
based on that feedback.
And the request I have of the board is, you know, so let's say we do the August 9th, that we're going to do the 2 community meetings on August 9th, already scheduled. If there are more meetings scheduled, whether they're civic meetings or any other feedback, that you send that to me so I have it, so that we can include it. And in order to be able to really create the scenarios, we would need that feedback, you know, the 3rd week of August, so that we can really do that work and incorporate it into the scenarios. So it's coming up quick.
Yeah. Right.
Any other questions, Mr. Inge?
So I know it's not your list, it's what the consultant came up in conjunction with the information surveys and the committee. So Ghent School wasn't originally on it, So, and now that it is on there, and then we get a $11 million price tag for a $4,000 stadium, where did that come from?
So our initial focus, as we informed the board, was on elementary schools.
Uh-huh.
So the committee chose to close Monroe because it's got only 200 domicile students. Well, you know, as the chief of schools, and I know the buildings, Monroe's only 30 years old.
Right.
Why would I give a 30-year-old building back to the city, or why would I suggest to the board to give back a 30-year-old school to the city when it's a viable building that should be used? So when we were looking at best-case scenarios, we have Ghent School, which is 12 years older, has a very high FCI. There's other challenges that are occurring there. It made sense for us to bring that into the conversation because of those reasons. And because we weren't looking at K-8s or middle schools or high schools, it came into the conversation after it was recommended to close Monroe. Just it made sense to give that newer building back.
So the recommendation for the Ghent closing?
Correct.
Okay.
And it was Get Moving.
I got you. Okay, Ghent moving. Let me make sure I correct that.
Building
'cause-
is closed.
Right, got it. Okay. So where did the stadium come from? Who have you been talking to in this, for that to come up? Because that was presented to us out of nowhere.
So we meet regularly with a planning committee.
Okay, who's on that planning committee?
I couldn't tell you all the city people, but numerous architects, engineers. Our folks is Dr. White, myself, Steve Sutmuller, David Gaskins, Jesse Zamora, a bunch of us. And when we were talking about potential, it came up that if the board voted to close Ghent, what would be other options as far as developing the entirety of that property? And the concept came up in one of those meetings where we were just spitballing, and the architect said, well, if the board chose to relocate the all-city program, that this could be a conceptual option.
Do you recall what meeting that was that y'all had that discussion?
That was probably mid to early June.
Do you have minutes from that discussion?
We don't do
Don't take
minutes. No, the architect, I believe, might keep the minutes.
Now, in this conceptualization that you made for this state, had you talked to any of the civic leagues before you even thought of conceptualizing a stadium there?
So we were invited to Ghent's PTA meeting
Got
on the 8th of May.
Uh-huh.
And we heard their concerns about how to manage the property for sharing part of it with Maury's athletic program as well as what they would need.
Okay.
And we heard all their concerns.
Was
And
it
then
presented at that time about a stadium?
No. It wasn't even thought of because, again, we hadn't even thought about relocating the program until the final closure list was created by the committee to close Monroe, which is only 1.4 something miles up the road.
I defer, and I'm going to come back. Sure.
Yeah, so, and not to pick on only, I know the Ghent-Monroe scenario has received obviously a lot of attention, but I want to use that as an example. When I say, feeder pattern and attendance zones. So right now, for instance, James Monroe has the number of students it has because there are students in that area that also go to Granby Elementary. They go to Taylor. There's a small piece that go to Taylor. There's small, so if all of those students were to go to James Monroe, the population would obviously be larger. So it's just having an understanding of what the impacts are when that happens. Like right now on paper, we haven't, like when we did the St. Helena, move, redistricting, we had all that information to say, okay, this is what the impact will be from that standpoint. Does that make sense?
It does, and I'm glad you brought that up, Ms. Pacine, because I think when we're looking at this, one school versus 10 schools, we're looking more holistically at the division, right? And that comment has come to me at one of the community meetings, was around, well, if we had the original zones for Monroe where we had the students back, then Monroe would have 400 students in it. And you are absolutely correct, we would, but then we'd create empty seats elsewhere. The bottom line is it's not the empty seats at one school, it's the empty seats at 50 schools that we have to be concerned about. Because if we can play a shuffling game and we can change attendance zones so that we get all of our schools to 70% capacity, but then we still are in the situation where we are. And budgetarily, 5 years down the line, if we haven't done anything, we're going to be suffering programmatically. We're going to be suffering, we won't be able to pay our teachers a great wage. And that's why I fully understand what you're asking for, that whole picture. But at the same time, we could spend the money with our consultants and the time doing a whole picture on this list. And then one little change to the list means doing every single thing again. So holistically, we're trying to think of it as, what do we need to do holistically, and what are the best options for us based off our current inventory of buildings? And which ones do we know we really, they're going to look good. Day one, our buildings are going to look good because our teams do great work. But they're older buildings, and they don't provide the same level of need, they don't meet our needs of all of our kids. And if we look more holistically and we come to that, then our next step, once the board agrees and says, okay, we agree these are probably the 10 buildings that we should take off our inventory, whatever it may be, however we do it, then the next step is to say, okay, we have to have public hearings now on zoning and everything else. So before we take a next step to actually do the final vote, like for St. Helena, that's that step. is saying, okay, as a board, before you vote and say, okay, yeah, we said we agreed on this list, but if the first two schools are school X, I'm not even going to say names, school X and school Z, right? If they're school X and school Z, we have to provide you all of that information before you can make that decision, because we have to hold a public hearing on school X and school Z as well. So that's really just the next phase. We just need the board to say, we agree, these are the 10 buildings that, as a board, based off the data, based off the condition, based off where we think we can move our students to, where it would be a better situation for them, and that we know that we're consolidating seats. As a board, we're behind it. But before we'll vote on the actual two schools, X and Z, we want to see the entire changes this is going to cause, and then the local changes that it's going to cause. So September 3rd is going to be too early for that.
Yes.
We need to get to this list so we can do the deep work on it. And then I think the goal by then would be, by December's meeting, that we have all of that mapped out, and that we have the public hearings, and this is just a loose timeline, but that's where I see the bigger work coming.
Okay. And I so appreciate you saying that and breaking down what the process is going to be in that way, because I know you feel the pressure, of this is the list, this is the hard list, this is what's going to happen when, right? And so breaking down the process per our policies and regulations, that's helpful. So I appreciate.
We're all eternal optimists. Where are the kids? Please move back into Norfolk. We don't want to close schools. We've been feeling that for a long time, but it's just not happening.
Yeah. Okay.
French.
So with with the schools that are here preliminary for closure, do you have a cost figure?
As far as the projected savings
Yeah.
for not putting money into the FCIs of those 10 schools?
Yeah, so let's just say,
it's
for
over-
example, with Tarleton Elementary School, how much does it cost to run that school? And then when you close that school and take those kids and send them to Little Creek Elementary School, how much are we saving?
It's approximately $1 million per elementary,
$1 million
$2 million for a middle, and about $3 million for a high school. That was in Mr. Sir's last presentation. Yes, ma'am.
And if I can add, Mr. Inge, for that, so those are our costs we're going to realize, just staffing-wise and electricity-wise and all that. But like with Tarleton, it's sinking.
Yeah.
So I mean, literally, it's going to be like $17 million to prop it up properly, and then in another decade, so those costs are other, just the
Even in
building upkeep costs that are bigger savings than.
The total of the 10 schools exceeds $200 million for the FCI, improving the SCIs by repairing all the priority 1, 2, 3, and 4 projects that are needed to bring them up to warm, safe, cool, and dry. It's over $200 million of our $900 million that we need. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions? Colonel?
Comment. On the school closure, I sent an email about clarification from the council. When does their 5-year period start? Because when I look at what we have here, some of the closures are beyond 5 years from the date of the resolution, 5 years from the 1st of August, 5 years from the first project starting. What does their 5-year mean? I think we need to know where the end is when we're doing this planning, and I don't think we do, because 2033 it's way out there. So I'm hoping, my point being is that if we're putting them too far into the future, and council, when they meet on the 26th or whatever it is at the end of the month, I hope they'll be satisfied with what we've given them, but I don't want them to say, oh, well, you made it too many years.
We haven't got any information from the city of Norfolk that stated we had to close these 10 schools in 5 years.
It was in the resolution.
The resolution did say 5 years,
Right,
two
but
per year.
you know how they communicate to us recently, they're certainly willing to barter timelines.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're barking at the right tree.
And this particular timeline you feel is doable for
Yes, ma'am.
NPS.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
And that's why we stretched it out to about 8 years. We didn't want to rush it. We wanted to be able to do it correctly.
But in the timeline includes, a couple buildings, that were already, technically approved in CIP funding for long-term to build some elementary schools. So it includes building Jaycox, it includes, like building a new suburban park. It would include, adding to Lake Taylor for consolidating the NTC. So items like that would take time for the consolidation to fully take place.
One,
No, go ahead.
one final with me, maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse here. But I know, of course, if a school is closed, of course, we don't own it, it goes back to the city. Have we started looking at maybe, I'm going to throw one out here. Let's just say if we were to vote and Norview Elementary was to close, it goes back to the city. Have we looked at a plan to say, hey, we know that childcare is a big issue in Norfolk. Have we looked at maybe other cities that have closed schools and made 24-hour childcare centers out of those schools that they have closed?
Specifically, childcare centers, I don't have that
And
information.
different
That's a
things,
good
yeah, but that's a
concept.
good, yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with the board making recommendations too, when we're closing a building or returning a building
Yeah.
back to say,
Oh, I plan to.
we've seen this as a need and good use. Even, the possibility of us holding a building internally for professional development use or something
Correct, right.
different where we know would be useful for the division, instead of having to go to hotels or renting places to do that kind of work. So thinking of that as a part of this process too,
Or
long-term.
parent centers or something,
yeah.
yeah.
Because I know with Lindenwood, we have environmental science, and that's a big thing there. And the students love it, faculty love it, and the community loves it. So, and seeing where we may be able to partner with community partners to see if in the city allowing that to be there for an environmental thing.
Yeah, so moving on from this, just so we have a process or understanding of what the communication is going to be going forward or how it's working, because I know, it was communicated to council about where we are in the process, the update. Have we received a response back is one question, and then the next is then how, are there any expectations as to how we will continue to communicate with them about what we're doing, or,
there has been no response from council.
okay,
The only response I saw was the article in the paper where the mayor responded.
right, okay,
It was favorable.
right. Okay, just wanted to know how we're.
All right, let's move on to agenda item 3.02, future agenda
Thank you, Mr.
items.
Fraley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Seam, would you like to bring up the thing from earlier that you would like to add as a future agenda item?
The thing from
Virginia
earlier.
Literacy Act, I put it down.
Oh,
on my list.
okay.
I got you.
I'm like, I brought up a lot of things. I think, Dr. Paul, did you,
I have it on my iPad. I'm good. I got it down.
oh, you got it down, okay. All right, so I think we're good with that, but since you,
I have a list of potential training dates, board training dates.
that was the only thing I had on mine.
From the VSBA. I will send them, I will email them tonight and ask you to get back to me as soon as possible.
Well, Madam Chair, if we could do that just for full transparency and openness, is it possible while we're all here in the same room to kind of have some dialogue around what those dates are and
Yes.
perhaps commit?
And I will say that Dr. Pohl and I have discussed board training, and we feel that it would be best be done in Charlottesville at the VSBA headquarters. So I asked for September and October dates, and I have probably 24 dates that are available that I can share, if you guys would like to know them now, like to look at them now.
Perfect opportunity, we're all here.
I've got them right in front of me. So, I'm just gonna open my calendar so I have some idea of what I'm doing. So, first one is no good because it's September 3rd. So they've given us the 8th, 9th, or 10th, the 15th, 22nd, 23rd, 25th, and 30th.
Days will we be
We
gone?
just, we gone a day.
Okay.
I'll let, if I need to go over anything again from September.
8th, 9th, and 10th
8th, 9th, and
is
10th.
doable for me those days. I am not available for the 15th, 22nd, or 23rd, for those days.
So the 25th and 30th. Okay.
I'm all for preferring to do it sooner than later. Yeah.
Can anybody tell me what their availability is on the 8th, 9th, or 10th of September?
I'm free.
Anybody else?
I
Schedules?
sent you an email with 8th, 9th, and 10th. I'm not here.
Okay, so those are out. How about the 25th and 30th?
I'm open.
Trying to get my phone back on.
30th is my 25th wedding anniversary, so you all know.
Well, my anniversary is tomorrow, and we're going to be at Norview, so
Oh,
sacrifice.
happy anniversary.
All right, is anybody else able to tell me if they're available on the 25th or 30th?
I am.
30th is a Tuesday.
I could do the 30th.
27.
Can you do the 25th?
I could.
How about the 30th?
Oh, you
On the 30th, I show that there's a VSBA evaluation workshop shop that day.
Are you signed up for it? Is that what you're saying?
I don't remember. It's a virtual one.
Yeah, but they, Ms. Patterson or Samantha.
I mean, we
may
can,
not be-
I can change it. If it's virtual, I can change the date.
So, can we do the 30th
I'm good.
in Charlottesville on the 30th?
Work for everybody? The September
Oh,
30th.
in Charlottesville.
In Charlottesville.
Hold on.
We can all carpool together. Wouldn't that be fun?
Get a van.
Mr. Fraley
We
said
take-
he'd get a yellow bus for us.
There you
Get a
go.
bus?
It's a long bus ride.
So would we go up the after, or we'd have to be there the whole day and spend the night on the
So we
30th?
would be able, I think it's 5 hours, so if you went the night before, then you could go home after the trading on the 30th.
We could all go the night before, I mean, whoever could
It's
come to
just-
the night before, and we'd have dinner together, and then, check into the hotel, do that sort of thing.
I can commit to that, to the 30th.
All right, so I will email them back.
The September 30th.
Can you email her tonight?
I'm doing it right now.
Oh, okay, because those days go quick.
This to me last night, so. Okay. Well, that's great. I'm glad we got that done. Any other future agenda items? So far, I have the Virginia Literacy Act.
Can do it earlier in September. I don't know if my daughter's gonna go.
What did she do?
October the 4th.
We do the
That is
25th?
cutting it
Would that be
close.
better?
Might be. Everybody can
Guys do the 25th?
I can do the 25th.
Fine with it.
Okay.
Colonel?
Yeah.
I'm open.
I'm looking,
Oh.
look, yeah, just,
It's just
the
a flex
25th will work.
So you don't have any idea
September?
if she comes earlier?
Right, exactly.
He said yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me respond again.
This Thursday.
We're doing 25th, not the 30th, is that correct? All right.
Tell me, the girl.
Okay. And any other future agenda items? We are going to get the school climate and culture report in October,
August.
August 27th.
August 27th. So that is already scheduled.
A suggestion on the agendas. Last time we met, there was like 3 changes to the agendas, and they're scattered on the desk. And if a revision number could be put on there, it would be helpful. The one that came, when I came today, I printed mine 2 days ago. It's changed. I didn't realize it until we got there. It causes confusion, is my point. And I think
Yeah. So-
somehow,
Put a footnote on
that-
that. That's a good idea.
just put a revision number on it.
Yeah, but if we,
Put a footnote
I just-
revised on date.
Bottom of it.
yeah,
Yeah, because when you get the notice from board docs, it just says there's been a change, and it
Yeah.
doesn't tell you exactly what was changed in the article. I think it's for
Hear you, yeah.
Okay.
everybody else, but for new people on the board also, if you don't know where to
The
look.
change occurred.
Thank you.
okay. All right, moving on to agenda item 3.03, motion to enter into a closed executive session.
I move that we go into executive closed session.
Second.
Ms. Moore Buffalo brought forth the motion, and Dr. Martin has seconded the motion. Ms. Tanner, please read the motion.
Move that the members of the school board of the city of Norfolk go into a closed meeting for the purposes which are set out in the subsection A of section 2.2-3711 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as amended for discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of the school board pursuant to subsection 2.2-3711A1 of the Act. The subject of this portion of the closed meeting is the discussion of possible discipline, demotion, or termination of specific personnel, consultation with legal counsel, and briefing by staff members pertaining to actual or probable litigation or regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by counsel pursuant to subsections 2.2-3711A7 and 8 of the Act. The subject of this portion of the closed meeting is the matter set out above in subsection A of this motion. Basine?
Aye.
Buffalo?
Aye.
Inge?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
Thomas? DeCalagero.
Aye.